But let's start with the Roto World player news. And the big news this morning, gentlemen, is that Deshaun Watson has a high ankle sprain. He has a fractured shoulder. The Cleveland Browns, they tweeted out the details that he sustained this injury against the Ravens. He somehow played through it.
That's a lot of words.
I'm not going to read it.
It's a lot of words.
What they writing? It's like
it's you know what it is? It's that, Lawrence, it's that too long, didn't read, wow, I'm happy for you, or I'm not reading all that, but I'm happy for you, or I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah,
sorry that happened to you.
And then somebody posted that they did the same thing for Nick Chubb when he tore his ACL, so the Browns got somebody with like a major writing degree or something, because they typing their ass off at that.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
now, don't like
a
to.
lot. Maybe whoever it is gets paid by the word or something like that. Browns fans do drink free. It was finally looking up for Cleveland fans, and then this is certainly a tough blow. What was the tweet? Something like so far the Browns have paid $90 million to Deshaun Watson for 11 games of work.
What's he got, a $63 million cap hit each of the next 4 years? Salary cap's not that big. It's not great. Now, I don't like to compliment the man, but the fact that he played through a fractured shoulder and a high ankle sprain against the Ravens defense, which might be a top 2 defense in football, and was able to go 14 for 14 and win that game, is completely ridiculous. But he's not going to be doing that going forward. It's going to be the DTR show. That was also announced. It's not going to be PJ Walker. Matthew, what do you think of the ramifications here?
Well, it's a couple of things. First off, I feel like, they're getting a free pass for trading Josh Dobbs in the preseason, which they clearly never. They should not have done that. Yeah. I think that's going to become a storyline, especially as you continue to see
DTR Dobbs. He was promising, and that's what prompted them to do that.
That is correct. That one of the reasons they felt like they could trade Dobbs, and they're trying to do right by the player, is because of the success they saw from Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the preseason. He had an impressive preseason. They liked him quite a bit. He's the guy that's going to be the starter moving forward, not PJ Walker. So let's break this down fantasy-wise. I think there's a couple of different things. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson becomes like a mid-tier QB2 because of the rushing ability. Like, again, the passing is still something that needs to come along. But, he is somebody that you could see because of the legs, the value he gets with his legs, he could be like he's somebody that should be picked up in 2 quarterback leagues.
Definitely. And you look at the one game he got to start this year, it was against the Ravens. They got smoked 28-3, right? So you really can't go off of that. No quarterback looked good against the Ravens this season. It certainly wasn't going to be a fifth-round rookie. At the end of the day, you have to lean on, the running backs. Jerome Ford's looked good. Amari Cooper, he's had decent games with whoever's at quarterback. So as far as the other guys around DTR, I would say you have to still start an Amari Cooper. You still have to start a Jerome Ford. And if you're struggling at tight end, throw a David Njoku in there and see what happens. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a much less tougher task than the Ravens, and that's all we saw him against.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, look, the Steelers are 19th against the run over the last month, so I certainly expect them to lean more heavily on the run game with Ford and Hunt in that order, and we've seen this before. When you have a mobile quarterback, that often opens up things for the run game. So while we think the passing game takes a step back, their run game actually might improve here, Lawrence and Jay. To your point, I do think, look, the one game they played, right? I mean, with DTR, Amari Cooper had 1 reception for 16 yards, just 2.6 yards. And in fact, if you average out all the non-Deshaun Watson games, for Amari Cooper's numbers in non-Deshaun Watson games, he's got single-digit fantasy points. Now, that's skewed by this DTR game because he was up and down with PJ Walker. He had 2 good games, 1 good game, 1 bad game, I should say. But I'm with you. But I think Amari Cooper went from a borderline top 12-ish wide receiver with Watson to now somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. He's a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2. Njoku's really interesting to me. Again, super small sample size, but in that one Week 4 game that DTR started, he had 10.6 fantasy points. He had a 20% target share. He got 6 targets, and so Thompson-Robinson, who is still developing as a passer, could look more for the outlet. I think Njoku remains a low-end tight end one that's more touchdown dependent, like most tight ends are, Jay. It feels like, though, how is the betting market looking at this in terms of the fact that the Browns, who were favorites to win this division, they aren't anymore, correct?
No, I mean, they were narrowly behind Baltimore, but they
were,
clearly
okay.
established themselves as the number 2 team, and we look at how their odds have shifted this morning after the news. They were 4-point favorites against the Steelers. That's down to 1.5, and people are thinking like, oh, how is DTR only a 2.5-point downgrade than Deshaun? Shouldn't that be bigger? That's gone through 3. When it goes through 3, that's a key number. 15% of NFL games end at a 3-point margin, so that is more than that looks like. Their odds to win the AFC North have gone from plus 230 to plus 450. AFC 13-1 to 20-1, and Super Bowl 30-1 to 45-1. Lawrence, when I think about this move, 2 things. 1, I think it's really encouraging that the Browns were able to run the ball against Baltimore, despite the fact that Baltimore have an elite rushing defense. And then 2, I think that this is a great move for Baltimore in terms of choosing DTR over PJ Walker, just because there's more variance here. There's no chance PJ Walker's good. Like, there's no chance he's an average to above average quarterback. We've seen too much. DTR, there is the chance that he's good. He was awesome in the preseason. He was bad against Baltimore.
Right.
And also, the other thing that I don't think it's brought up, like, he didn't really have a proper week of practice that week because Deshaun got injured late in the week. So
that's right.
I think there is a chance that he could just be good.
Yeah, and look,
passable.
Or possible, yeah.
It's
He's not going to be
competent.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why you see him as still a 1.5-point favorite. Like, they could definitely go and win this game, and it doesn't mean DTR has to come out doing anything crazy. Deshaun Watson wasn't. He was playing much better than what he was, but he wasn't doing anything to the max. Like Matthew said earlier, lean on the run game. You saw them run the ball against the Ravens. They should be able to do the same thing against the Steelers. Lean on that and just go from there. But like you said, we can't just, look at his 1-game sample against the best defense in the league outside of his own and say, hey, this is trouble. But as far as the bigger scope in the division goes, like, it's tough, man. I feel like this Deshaun Watson news has definitely opened up the door for teams like the Chargers, teams like the Broncos. You might even say the Bills now that they're sitting at 5-5. So it opens up the door for some of those other teams to kind of make a move. But this game with the Steelers, with both of them sitting at 6-3 in this tight division, is going to be big.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, there's now like a coin flip's chance that the Steelers are going to be 7-3, which is completely ridiculous. They might be the 23rd best team in football or something, and they're a very real chance to be 7-3.
It's so weird. 48 hours ago, you would say the Browns have, a pretty good shot at winning this division. You said,
Absolutely.
The Ravens were slightly ahead of them as favorites, but obviously, the Browns had just beat them last week, and so, but now you think about, obviously Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You've got Baltimore. To your point, the Steelers might be 7-3. Look at the upcoming schedule for the Browns, just to take this to an NFL discussion for 1 second. So Pittsburgh this week, then they're at Denver, a suddenly rejuvenated Broncos defense that has shut down the Bills and the Chiefs in back-to-back games. Then they're at the Rams. That's not a pushover game. Then they're home to Jacksonville. Jacksonville's good. All right, home to Chicago. Okay, you feel good about that. At Houston. The Texans have been plucky, obviously. Home to the Jets in Week 17, and then in Week 18, they're at Cincinnati for another divisional game. So, there's not a lot of games where you're like, that one they're definitely winning.
Yep.
Right,
They still have an elite defense. They can still run the ball. As long as DTR can, and I always use this phrase, but as long as DTR can, Brock Purdy it, which again,
just limit the mistakes.
Which is just limit the mistakes, exactly. He's a very different quarterback than Brock Purdy. It's going to be more running than passing here, but just run the offense. And to that point, again, as I mentioned, Steelers are 19th against the run. The Broncos, we saw James Cook and Latavius Murray. You can run on the Broncos. So that's what it's going to have to be. Is they're going to have to just lean on their run game and their defense here. But again, Browns fans, drink free. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.